Once upon a time, in a hellscape far, far away, there lived a boy named Seth. He was a simple creature, fascinated by technology and video games, who spent much of his teenage years watching and following tech YouTube. In 2015, following in the footsteps of his idols such as Mr. Linus T. Tips, Bitwit, and Greenham Gaming, he built his first custom gaming computer, name of Sonic. Needless to say, he also had autism. One fateful day, after graduating college, building multiple other computers, and generally still indulging his tech fascination, Seth decided to rewatch an old Greenham Gaming video. He glanced down at the comments, which caught his attention.
Imagine how we will see a GF Titan X 20 years from now,
90 Ti will never look like shit.
At some point, though, we will hit a wall and Moore's Law will level off. We're already slowing down in CPU technology.
One day, when I'm like 40 years old, I'll have myself a bunch of computers with i7
IMO, a single 90 Ti or Titan X, most games 4K. Trying to imagine the speed of a quad SLI Titan XLI. It's 125. I'm waiting for these days when in 2030 someone make a video called The Ultimate 2015 Gaming PC and put to it only 40% of real 2015 parts, the rest 2020 parts.
Can this PC run Notepad?
Seth looked at his watch. It was future o'clock. He reached deep into his tired, dusty, Pentium 4 powered brain. He had a job. Tech prices go down.
Money can be exchanged for goods and services.
He could build this computer. The computer he could only dream of owning back in the day. The computer which only the likes of Linus Tips had the money to build. Would it still be a good computer?
I have to build this.
After researching his options, he scoured eBay and Facebook Marketplace. Which motherboard should he choose? Should he get an old case or a new one? Should he pay his rent or finally try SLI Titans? After making his choices, waiting for parts to arrive, couldn't get the motherboard to work, bought a whole different computer, found out the first motherboard did work, selling the first part, then finally building, it was done.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, today I have assembled the ultimate 2015 gaming computer. This beast features an overclocked Core i7-5960X Extreme Edition processor, the NVIDIA GeForce GTX Titan X, 32 gigs of RAM, a 1TB NVMe SSD, and a whole decade of time since those specs were impressive. Has time left this former monster of a computer in the dust? Let's find out. Hi, welcome back. I'm Seth. Yes, that same Seth you saw in those clips earlier. I lost a bunch of weight at the end of high school, hit the gym. Don't worry about it. Point is, I've been following the tech scene for a while now, even back when LTT built their first compensator. I remember just thinking that machine was so powerful, so out of my reach. So when I was browsing eBay recently and found that the i7-5960X was only 40 bucks, I could not resist building something like this. And here it is. I'm really happy with how it turned out. I'll display a full list of the specs now. I overclocked the CPU a decent amount, from 3.5 GHz to 4.325 GHz, which from my research is an average to slightly below average overclock for this platform. The RAM is a G-Skill HyperX kit I got a good deal on, running at 2750 MHz, as fast as I could get it to be stable. DDR4 RAM was very new when the 5960X came out, so I don't think the CPU can handle speeds much faster than that, even though the RAM itself can. The case is a fractal design Define 7 Compact, which while not available in 2015, its older brothers, the Define R5 and Define S, were available, and very popular back then. The rest of the components don't really matter, you know, terabyte NVMe SSD, 1000 watt power supply, a cheap Amazon CPU cooler I thought looked decent aesthetically and was just enough to handle the 5960X. Oh, and can't forget the GPU. Today we've got the magnificent NVIDIA GeForce GTX Titan X, the absolute top-end flagship graphics card from NVIDIA back in the day. And with roughly the same performance as a GTX 1070 and a whopping 12 gigs of VRAM, it should still be able to put up decent numbers in older games. I gotta say, this card has a sort of aura, a vibe that the 980 Ti just can't match. Knowing that this card retailed for $1,000 back when that was a ludicrous price for a GPU makes me feel a sort of reverence for it, if that makes sense. And with the specs out of the way, let's get right onto the numbers. Starting with the Cinebench R15, we see that... Wait, I know some of you are asking, Seth, Aren't you forgetting something? That Titan has those little ports on the side. This was the 900 series, back when SLI was still supported. Pushed, even. Surely you didn't forget that every baller back then was running multiple GPUs? No, I didn't forget. I went back and forth on this one. Yeah, SLI was supported back then, but it started to lose its mainstream appeal toward the end of the 900 series run, and definitely into the 10 series. Plus, it kind of always sucked. There were always issues with microstutter. Even the best written games never scaled perfectly with it, and basically no games made in the last 5 years support it anyway. So what did I do? I bought another one. How could I call it the ultimate computer without going all out? Do it for the vine, Seth. Do it for the vine. And before you ask, no, I am not buying any more. 2-way SLI was already questionable. 3 or 4-way was straight up a bad idea, even back then. Anyway, with that said, here's a price comparison between what I paid for this computer today and what it would have cost back then. Pause if you want to read more in detail. And now finally, we can get onto the benchmarks. I've included my main PC, yes, still called Sonic, on the charts here just as a comparison for what the 2015 PC looks like next to a high-end PC today. Here are its specs. But for some reason it seemed to be getting capped at my main monitor's 240Hz, despite me turning off VSync and frame limits in every game, so keep that in mind. Also, all games were run at 1080p. Alright, I'm excited. Let's roll those numbers, baby!
Starting off with some synthetic benchmarks, in Cinebench R15 we see Sonic's 9800X3D put out double the numbers of the 5960X. While it's definitely a blowout, it's honestly by not as much as I thought it would be, given the 10-year gap. In 3D Mark Time Spy, we start to see the gigantic leap GPUs have made in the past 10 years. Even SLI isn't enough for the 2015 PC to catch up, with Sonic's RTX 5080 getting 3.4 times the graphics score of the SLI computer, and 6.6 times the score with only one Titan enabled. CPU scores roughly line up with the Cinebench results. Moving on to real games, in Cyberpunk 2077 at low settings, we see the 2015 PC actually put up playable numbers, with 73-ish average FPS and healthy 1 and 0.1% lows just below 60. Cyberpunk doesn't make use of SLI, so both the 1 and 2 GPU results come within margin of error of each other. Sonic, of course, crushes both setups, getting near the refresh rate cap of my monitor. In Red Dead Redemption 2 at balanced settings, we see the 2015 PC again put up respectable numbers, with 63 average FPS with 1 GPU and a significant boost to 78 FPS with SLI turned on. So decent SLI scaling here, but not close to that 2x that theoretically would be possible. Sonic gets much better numbers, of course, but not by nearly as much as I would expect. We seem to be CPU limited. In Shadow of the Tomb Raider at medium, we see excellent SLI scaling with 88 FPS with 1 GPU and close to double the frames with SLI turned on at 154 FPS. The 1% lows do suffer a bit with SLI turned on, and personally I can attest to microstutter being visible with SLI turned on, so take that as you will. Sonic crushes again, getting capped by the monitor. In Doom Eternal at high, we actually see the first game where SLI hurts frame rate, with 109 FPS achieved with 1 GPU and only 100 with 2. Not a gigantic loss, sure, but enough to not be within margin of error. Sonic, meanwhile, hits the monitor's refresh rate cap comfortably in average 1% and 0.1% lows. Did you know that Counter-Strike 2 has SLI compatibility? Because I sure didn't. The 2015 PC gets a small boost from 137 FPS average to 158 with a second GPU enabled. Plenty of frames for the casual gamer, but I imagine esports pros will want a little more than that in a twitchy shooter like this, especially not with any microstutter. Sonic, again, maxes out the monitor. Finally, with our last game, we get a bit of a reality check. In the Monster Hunter Wilds benchmark at the absolute lowest settings and even AMD's upscaling tech enabled, we see only 23 FPS on the 2015 PC and no additional boost with SLI enabled. With the base FPS being this low, frame generation is not an option, believe me. There's not enough real frames to hide the fake ones. Sonic, meanwhile, outputs 7 times the frame rate. Safe to say this game is not playable on the 2015 PC, unfortunately.
So yeah, them's the breaks. After seeing those results, I'm happy to report that if you have a computer of this caliber from a while ago, you still have a capable gaming PC. This computer is still more than capable of playing esports titles and even AAA games from a couple years ago. But time is quickly running out for this era of hardware. As we saw on the Monster Hunter Wilds benchmark, games coming out now are starting to ask for more performance than a 10-year-old flagship can muster, and without any ray tracing cores or future games supporting SLI, this setup will quickly be left behind. On top of that, driver support for Maxwell-based cards are actually ending next month, along with Pascal and Volta. Hell, this computer already can't play that new Indiana Jones game, and I doubt it could play Black Myth Wukong at 60 FPS low without some kind of frame gen or upscaling support. Speaking of which, while SLI won't save this computer, I might suggest, if for some reason you're still running SLI in current year, looking into lossless scaling. That way you can use your secondary GPU specifically for upscaling and frame gen instead of letting it go unused. Comment if you want to see what that looks like on this computer. Anyway, with that said, that's the end of the video. Thank you for watching this far. I genuinely mean that. If you like this video evaluating old flagship computer hardware, consider liking or subscribing. It really helps out the channel, and there's more content on the way that I think a viewer like you might really like. Anyway, that's all for now. Have a good one.